Peace Barricade.
Hello and welcome on the Peace Barricade. My name is Maria Cernat. I am an academic based in Bucharest. I am a radical feminist and socialist, but last but not least, a pacifist. I started collaborating with World Beyond War and I started to be more active in spreading the peace message through this podcast, through various articles and conferences that I attend to, because I think now where escalation of wars is more threatening than ever, is important to try to advance a pro-peace agenda, the peace message worldwide. So this is why we are producing this podcast. With me today, we have Hans Hedrich, a Romanian activist of German origin with 19 years of experience in the field of environmental protection and human rights. Thank you for coming here today.
Thanks for inviting me.
And also we have another guest who is Xavier Dammam. He created something very interesting, and that is the Commons Hub, a co-working space in the old center of Brussels, owned and managed by a group in a cooperative style. And I hope he could share more about his ideas and how this type of collaboration could advance a society based on cooperation and solidarity, where peace is not just an ideal, but something to be actually realized. Thank you for being here with us.
Pleasure.
So we will start, maybe Hans will take the role of the bad cop, telling us more about the pessimistic news coming from Germany, the risk of deindustrialization, economic precarity, instability. I heard that Volkswagen, the famous German automaker, just wanted to dismantle collective working contract for the workers, and there are tensions over there. And then we have the hopeful part. Maybe Javier will tell us more about this cooperative style of working and how this little step could advance a more peaceful society based on solidarity and cooperation. So I'll start with Hans to offer Xavier to offer us the positive perspective. Hans, I heard that in Germany there are a lot of tensions also related to this incident, working conflict, to call it, between the workers who sign a collective working contract with Volkswagen and the managers of the company who see themselves in the situation of firing a lot of people. We know that a lot of the wealth Germany is producing comes from this sector of automobile manufacturing. So tell us more about the situation in Germany.
I must say I don't know the details of this labor, let's say, conflict, but I see the bigger picture of a crisis in the automotive sector, which is due partly to increased energy prices for several reasons. One definitely is the conflict between Russia and Ukraine and so on. And so Europe and including Germany have to buy more expensive gas from other sources than the cheap Russian gas in the past. But as well, of course, there is big structural change. China is coming with electric cars, and so the classical combustion engines made in Europe are on the retreat. So it's a complex picture. But the bigger picture is as well the conflict, Russia-Ukraine, the war of Russia against Ukraine, and all these embargo measures taken by the European Union for reasons that might be just, but they produce these side effects that are so negative to the whole of Europe, actually. So, and in Germany, there's talk about deindustrialization. And it's not just a talk there, there's a reality behind it. More and more jobs being lost, smaller companies have to close because energy is too expensive, and so on. So there's lots of polycrisis, if you want, so that manifests itself not only in Germany but in the industries of Europe, I'd say.
Okay, Javier, maybe you wanted to create this space, I think also with the hope of social change, because usually people, when they try to create some sort of a business, they think only on the lucrative aspect. They want to gain a lot of money, isn't it? And let's face it, it would have been much easier for you to just rent the place, become a rentier, become a member of the rentier class, isn't it? Take the money, go on a nice island, and that would be it. Why make it so complicated and harder? Create a common where everybody, I hope, maybe not everybody, but I think that there were people telling you, this is too complicated. Why don't you do it the classical way? So what motivated you to think of alternative ways of creating this working space?
Yeah, I mean, the, so my background is in the tech industry. I'm an entrepreneur. I did a few startups. I used to live in Silicon Valley, and I moved back to Brussels a few years ago. Got quite involved in the climate emergency activism with Extinction Rebellion and other groups. And and yeah, and to answer your question, it's just simply because like money doesn't make you happy. It takes so much more, and thanks God actually that the best things in life are actually cannot be bought. It's about community and having a sense of belonging, having a sense of contributing. Being alone and being able to order on Uber Eat your food, it doesn't feel you the same way than having being part of a community and having a dinner together, right? So, and especially nowadays, I think Hans said it really rightly, like we are facing a poly crisis, a meta crisis. I think it's easy to just start blaming, oh, let's blame Russia, let's blame this, let's blame that. Like, it's complex. It's not that those things are false. It's just that we need to look at the bigger picture. There is a climate emergency. The world is changing. We need to adapt. And we've built a world since the Industrial Revolution that has been all about consuming, increasing GDP, without taking care of regenerating the resources that we are consuming. Right? So that system helped us, right? I'm not trying to blame previous generations here. We wouldn't have done a better job. It's just that we need to move to a new era, an era post-growth, where we need to start growing in new dimensions, like consciousness and relationships, really. Because in many ways, we've been destroying relationships, right? To turn everything into a transaction for the GDP. And that creates very efficient system. But like any efficient system, it only works in a very stable environment. It's like those carbon fiber road bikes. They're super light, super efficient, but they can only be used on roads, really, well done roads. Once you get off that road, that's not really the best tool for the job. And so this is really the transition that needs to happen now. It's like instead of pursuing and building, for example, indeed, like a co-working in the old way with just like a very top-down structure with, a single owner, a CEO, and then people just pay and then they don't need to worry about the impact. There is somebody else who is paid to clean after them, for example. Like, no, this is kind of the old model. What we try to do here is create a common space and that we share the responsibility, we share the ownership, and we learn how do we manage a limited resource together, because this is really what is at the heart of the problem of today. As a society, as a community, we have lost our ability to manage the limited resources provided by our environment in a way that is sustainable, yet alone regenerative. And so that's what we are going to explore together. And we just got the keys here like in June. So it's still very, very new, but it's right in front of the central station of Brussels. And it's really, um, the it's also very much a statement that we want to be in the middle of it all, in the capital of Europe. And we want to tell people like, hey, uh, what else is possible? We are at the
Yes.
end of a system. What else is possible? When shit hits the fan, when institutions are collapsing around us because they're clearly unfit to deal with those meta crises, because it's not a crisis, it's a meta crisis, polycrisis. Well, when all of that falls apart, what's going to remain is each other. And we're going to have to find ways to work together and manage resources together. So, how do we do that? Well, it turns out we actually know already how to do that. We just forgot it. We need to go back to our own indigenous culture here in Europe, where we used to have this Europe of cities and all of those trade rules between cities, and we had those commons that were managed by the people, and it worked, right? So we actually know. We just need to relearn it. And a guide for us is the work of Elinor Ostrom, who is the first woman Nobel Prize of Economics. And she basically wrote kind of in a way, like the Bible about the commons. How do we manage commons? How do we do that? So here it
Yeah,
is. Here's a school
yeah,
of the commons, a house for the commons, right in Brussels.
yeah. This is
Uh,
so.
I,
Oh, so please, Hans, go ahead.
Let me just add that picking up on this word commons, the key word, in international politics, peace is one of the commons that is there to be managed. And for the last, I don't know how many decades, the commons of peace have been managed more and more by individual players, big powers. Okay, after the Cold War, it's been the unipolar moment. It's been the USA, the West, if you want. So managing, being the police man worldwide. Okay, so they have managed the peace, the common of the peace, or the value of the peace, and this poses problems because peace touches all of us. We should all contribute to managing peace. You can't have one power saying, "Okay, I'm the policeman," and we have to go back as well to the systems of managing peace as a commons, like the United Nations. So the institution is there. We have a set of rules. It should be strengthened. So the commons of peace should be managed again by all of us through institutions that are already there. Okay, so there's very much to build on. We don't have to reinvent the wheel or the piece, but go back to the good practices. And here I see the word commons and peace just matching perfectly. It's a perfect match, if you want. So
Yes, yes, because the delicate balance of terror, as they called it during the Cold War, was just a way to assure that everybody obeys because they of fear. But this is a way of actually using other means to terrorize everybody, not to get everybody together to work towards achieving this ideal of peace. This I'm perfectly here we are in perfect agreement. And then also I liked very much what Javier had to say about the commons. And there is actually I'm currently writing a review for a book that's called Everyday Utopia. It was written by Catherine Godsey, and she discusses there several communities that wanted to actually put in practice the idea of a common. And she examines from the kibbutzes in Israel to the palace of social palace, that it was called in G's, France, and all sorts of social experiments where the commons and also common housing projects, because I think it's very important not to have, like we had in Romania, a form of state capitalism where you just replace the class of owners with the state, but the pyramid of social relations were still the same because a small minority, this time the party bureaucrats, told everybody else what to do. But then you have a movement that is based on common, on cooperation, solidarity, but it's bottom up, not top down. But now coming again to the harsh realities, because this is all well and fine in practice, but I have two questions, one for the Hans, and what for Xavier. Of course, you may answer both of them, but what is the biggest danger now in Germany? Because look, Hans, I can't find any explanation why Germany would shoot itself in the foot like this. It is either that Scholz and Annalena, what's her name, Annalena Baerbock and all the others are just ideologues. They cannot think outside the box and they are willing to destroy the whole country just to follow their ideas. The second one is more sinister. They are cynical and acting for powers outside Germany. Of course, this may sound conspiratorial, but I'm just putting and putting here some possible hypotheses. And the third one is a combination of the two. They are ideologues and at the same time cynical and not caring to what happened to Germany, just for them to reach their own personal agenda and their ideological agenda. The first one and the second one, what about Kaja Kallas? She's about to be named. We are talking here about commons and everything else, but a few buildings from where you're staying now, a very terrible thing is about to happen in this person who's a Russophobe, ultra-militaristic, also a fanatic of militarism, is about to be named High Representative of the EU. So please.
I try to be brief. Since you are in the capital of the European Union, I don't want to have a German-centric talk because I think the situation in Germany is a kind of symptom of Europe in the widest sense. And we had previous talks about it, and based on new knowledge and older knowledge about the role of Central Europe in the wider geopolitics of the European continent. And it just happens that Germany is in the center of the geographic center of Europe. And there's lots of research out there, historic research about the European politics of the past having at its core the interest how to manage the center, the core of Europe, because the one who controls the center of Europe controls the whole continent. And from an Anglo-Saxon American perspective, they see the whole world. They see Eurasia, okay, Europe and Asia. And there's this famous theory, the heartland theory, that seems to be active because you find the leitmotif in the American geopolitical programs. It's kind of public. It's only that it's not written in the newspapers, but it's public, that there's an interest to control Europe and Asia from outside, from, well, let's say USA, UK in brackets. And in Europe, we have Central Europe as a economic pole, which is Germany plus the west of Europe. And then in towards Asia, we have Russia, okay? And they supply the cheap energy and resources, and Central Western Europe supplies the knowledge. And if they work together, if there's peace and cooperation in Europe, like we had it after the Cold War, Europe will grow and it will become a strong competitor to others. And the other is United States, although we are partners in a way, like NATO and so on. But there's competition as well between the currencies as well, the US dollar and the euro. So, and coming back to your question, this conflictualization of the relationships between in Eastern Europe, Russia, Ukraine, does damage to the economic power of Europe, because it severes the cooperation between East and West. But this was the basis of one of the bases of the growth in Europe. So that's what's happening in Germany, and that's why I see that it's a symptom of the wider geopolitical agendas. Okay, and that's not a German-centric politics point of view. I don't like that, because no, but it's the sources are mainly American researchers or former personnel of the political
Public
sphere.
administration.
Okay? Exactly, from public administration. They say it. So and it's well, it's out there. This topic is out there, that all these conflicts that are going on are about how to manage the world again, the commons of resources worldwide, who has access to what, which power should grow, which should not grow so fast. So there's China, there's Russia, there's Europe, America, okay, the BRICS, this competition between old dominant powers and the new ones who ask for a fair share at the table of the powerful, and so on. So, okay, back to Europe and Germany. It's a symptom of the wider struggle, and again, we need a cooperation and negotiating interest is a legitimate thing. That's how peace has been re-established in Europe. That's a tradition of peacemaking in Europe, like the Congress of Vienna 200 years ago, the Helsinki Conference 1975, where all the states sat together without blaming each other and pointing the finger at each other like it's happening now. You are to blame, you are to blame. No, just sit together, discuss what's happened, what has been in the past, leave it behind, and go for the future. Okay, live in peace again. So that's where we need to get back. And to answer your question concerning Kaja Kallas, the nominated High Representative of the EU, she is as well a kind of symptom of this blame game that we are playing in Europe. Okay, she's one who blames Russia for reasons that might be just. Okay, Russia is an aggressor in Ukraine. That's obvious. But then it's not the job of a diplomat to run around in the world and like this, with pointing the finger at others. And the German foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock, does exactly the same. So that's why I oppose Kaja Kallas as a future EU High Representative, and try to do advocacy work with members of the EU Parliament to vote against her in the committees and in the plenary. So that's why I actually came now in September to Brussels. We can talk maybe with another occasion about how this campaign goes.
Yes, I'm very curious to tell us more, and I hope you'll keep us posted. So, Javier, how about Kaja Kallas?
Well, we cannot discover a new world with an old map, and I think yet we have this tendency, of course, at looking at the new situation with our old glasses, right, our old lens, and there are commoners in Russia. There are people who do cooperatives in the US as well. In fact, the largest cooperative in Brussels, called the B-Scope, is a supermarket cooperative. It's a copy of the Park Slope cooperative in Brooklyn, right? And I'm sure there is, and I've seen actually in Ukraine and also in Russia, there are people also trying to rebuild community and doing all of that, right? So the reality is that this old concept of nation state needs to go away. We are a new generation. We are all connected. And to me, like the game, the new map is to be rooted locally, but globally connected, right? So it has to be, you said it before, it has to be bottom up. So I don't have any opinion on Germany. I don't live there. There are enough problems in Brussels for me to worry about that. And if everyone does the same, but everyone share their struggles globally and connect and share knowledge on Wikipedia, and then build open source tools to help each other and all of that, then we can truly coordinate our way out of this meta crisis. And so to me, like the only way out basically of this poly crisis, however you want to call it, is by out coordinating the current world that is coordinating only through the silos of those nation states and institutions, and they blame each other instead of building bridges. When there is an aggressor, and I mean, from the limited knowledge that I have on the war, and like it looks like indeed like it's Russia that is the aggressor here. But when you are aggressing someone, like usually it's because you've been hurt before. right? So we need to basically be able to look beyond the first layer and see like, all right, what's going on? Because there are good people in Russia. There are bad people in Russia. There are good people in Brussels. There are bad people in Brussels. We are all humans. It's no different. So my invitation really is to basically, as much as we can, stay away from the blaming game. So I like what Anne said about that. And then first, look in front of our own door, look in front of our own street. It's easy to shout, it's easy to say, oh, Germany should do that, Italy should do this, whatever, like Russia should do that. Like, come on, that's easy, right? That's activism or whatever, right? What I call it. The hard work is actually go in your street, look around, look at your neighborhood, build commons, recreate community, build relationships with your neighbors. That's, then we can actually realize that actually everything is a fractal and the problems in the world actually are on our own streets as well. And the work starts right there.
Wow, what an inspiring message. You should run for something in politics, Javier, because I feel so inspired. Usually I'm so pessimistic. And this is also what I try to do with this podcast. I'm trying to spread the word. I try to build the media community around the idea of peace, of spreading the word. But for the most part, I'm very pessimistic because a lot of people are still caught up in this so-called old map, mentality where you have the blame game, constant competition, precarity, because constant competition fuels precarity and anxiety and unhappiness and all the rest. And yeah, this is so inspiring. Thank you so much.
But here is a breaking news. You are not going to change them. Neither do I. Right? So the question is, we should try to stop wasting our energy trying to change others, and we should instead use that energy to build a coalition of the willings. There is already enough of us who do understand what's going on, who also want to do that. And so just recently, Hans just joined the Commons Hub, and I'm super happy about it. This is fantastic, right? So we need to build coalitions of the willings and recreate community, because at the end of the day, community is immunity. The next couple of years, not gonna lie, are not going to be easy, because like you said, there's a lot of forces right now in the universe that, is pushing in that direction. And the night is always darkest before dawn. So the question for us more is, how can we create pockets of resilience so that once the winter is over, we are ready to get off the ground and blossom and, build that peace that we want and start this new civilization that's going to be much more regenerative.
Yeah. Thank you so much to the both of
Off
you.
to work.
Yes, very, very inspiring. And dear viewers, if you like what you saw, please share our content. It helps us grow. Please comment. Also, the comments help us, and we will be more than happy to bring back also Hans and Javier with more to answer your questions and your comments. Thank you so much to the both of you.
Thanks as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace, barricade.